Take a journey back in time with me, to the heart of Europe, to a kingdom that became the very definition of elegance, power, and absolute rule. France. We're not talking about the France of today, but the France of divine kings and gilded thrones, a time when monarchs claimed their authority came directly from God himself. This is a story of unparalleled glory, of dark betrayals, and ultimately, of a spectacular collapse that shook the world. Our story begins with the House of Capet, a dynasty that forged France from the chaos of the early medieval period into one of Europe's most formidable realms. For centuries, they laid the groundwork, consolidating power and expanding their territory. By the 17th century, the crown had passed to a new dynasty, the House of Bourbon, and with it came a king who would change everything. His name was Louis XIV, but history would remember him as the Sun King. He transformed France into the undisputed center of the world, and his palace at Versailles was the dazzling heart of it all. Versailles wasn't just a home. It was a stage, a theater of power designed to awe and intimidate. Every single day, a ritual known as the lever took place. As the sun rose, courtiers would flock to the king's chambers, not just to greet him, but to witness him rise from his bed, as if the sun itself revolved around his royal person. Louis XIV famously declared, "L'état c'est moi, I'm the state," and for a time he centralized power like no king before him, taming the fractious nobility by turning them into fawning courtiers, their influence dependent entirely on his favor. Under his reign, French culture, art, and military might reach their zenith. He was the embodiment of the divine right of kings, a concept that placed him above all earthly authority, answerable only to God. But such absolute power casts a long and expensive shadow. By the time Louis XIV's great-grandson, Louis XV, ascended the throne, the sun was beginning to set on France's golden age. The kingdom was drowning in debt, weighed down by the cost of endless wars and the extravagant lifestyle of the court. While the Sun King had been a master of public image and political theater, Louis XV was more interested in private pleasures. He saw the storm clouds gathering on the horizon, but chose to ignore the cries of his people, famously and perhaps apocryphally remarking, "Après moi, le déluge, after me the flood." He couldn't have been more prophetic. The flood was coming, and it would sweep away everything his ancestors had built. Then came the final Bourbon king of the old regime, Louis XVI. He was a different kind of ruler, shy, well-meaning, but tragically indecisive. He inherited a kingdom teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, and a populace growing increasingly resentful. His wife, the Austrian Archduchess Marie Antoinette, became the lightning rod for all that public anger. She was beautiful, fashionable, and completely out of touch with the struggles of ordinary people. She became a symbol of royal excess, unfairly saddled with the infamous quote, "Let them eat cake," a phrase she almost certainly never said. But the truth didn't matter, the perception did. While peasants starved due to bad harvests and crushing taxes, the court at Versailles continued its seemingly endless cycle of opulent balls, elaborate banquets, and decadent parties. Beyond the glittering hall of mirrors, the foundations of the monarchy were crumbling. Years of war, deep social inequality, and the spread of revolutionary Enlightenment ideas had created a powder keg. All it needed was a spark. That spark came on July 14, 1789, an angry mob of Parisians, desperate for gunpowder and furious at the king's authority, stormed the Bastille, a medieval fortress used as a state prison. The fall of the Bastille was more symbolic than strategic, but its impact was seismic. It was a direct assault on the symbol of royal tyranny, and the revolution had begun. The shockwaves spread across France. Louis XVI, once the most powerful man in Europe, watched helplessly as his authority evaporated. He and his family were forced from the splendor of Versailles to become virtual prisoners in Paris, the divine right of kings. A concept that had governed France for 1,000 years was being torn apart by the raw power of the people. The revolution grew more radical with each passing month. The dream of a constitutional monarchy where the king would share power with the people died as Louis attempted to flee the country in 1791. He was caught and brought back to Paris in disgrace. Now, he wasn't just a failed king, he was a traitor. In the autumn of 1792, the monarchy was formally abolished and France was declared a republic. The former king was put on trial as citizen Louis Capet. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. In January 1793, The unthinkable happened. The King of France, the Lord's Anointed, was led through the streets of Paris to a public square and placed on the guillotine. As the blade fell, a new, terrifying era was born. A few months later, Marie Antoinette, reviled as the Austrian she-wolf, followed him to the scaffold, meeting her end with a dignity that surprised her enemies. The reign of the Bourbons had ended in blood, but the story of France's rulers was far from over. The revolution devoured its own, leading to the Reign of Terror, a period of paranoia and mass execution. Out of this bloody chaos, a new figure rose, a brilliant and ambitious military general named Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1804, in a ceremony dripping with imperial grandeur at Notre Dame Cathedral, Napoleon decided he would not be crowned by the Pope. Instead, in a stunning act of self-made power, he took the crown and placed it on his own head, then crowned his wife Josephine as Empress. He had forged a new French empire, and for a decade he would be the master of Europe. But like the kings before him, his ambition led to his downfall. His empire collapsed and he was exiled. What followed was a dizzying political whirlwind. The Bourbons were restored to the throne only to be overthrown again. France cycled through monarchy, republic, and another empire under Napoleon's nephew, Napoleon III. It was as if the nation was trapped in a cycle, forever struggling with the ghost of its royal past. The grand theater of European power struggles played out on French soil, with each act more dramatic than the last. Today, France is a stable republic. The thrones are empty, the crowns locked away in museums. And yet, the legacy of the French monarchy is everywhere. It's in the soaring cathedrals they built, in the magnificent chateaux that dot the countryside, and in the unparalleled art collections of the Louvre. It's in the very language of diplomacy and fashion. But it also lingers as a haunting memory, the memory of Versailles in all its golden glory and the memory of that cold January, morning on the scaffold when a king who once claimed to rule by God's will met the sharp democratic blade of the revolution. It's a powerful and timeless reminder that no power is absolute, and no throne, no matter how gilded or divinely ordained, is truly meant to last forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into history as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time.